at all. You listen to BBC Radio London. Let's catch up now with your latest news, travel and sport, starting with Matthew Schofield.
Good morning. The BBC's learned all 33 councils in London were warned about the potential risks of external cladding on tower blocks just weeks before the fire at Grenfell Tower. The fire brigade wrote to them after an investigation into a fire in an 18-storey block in Shepherd's Bush last summer, which found the polystyrene and plywood insulation panels fitted to the building were the likely cause of the fire spreading up the outside. All 95 samples of cladding tested since Grenfell have failed fire safety tests. Yesterday, Theresa May said there must be a major national investigation into its use. Labour is to table an amendment to the Queen's speech calling for an end to the 1% cap on public sector pay rises and to cuts to the police and emergency services. Jeremy Corbyn says it'll be a test of MPs' willingness to oppose further austerity. It's expected to be defeated by the government with the support of the Democratic Unionists. Plans to make minicab drivers pass an English language test before they can start work are to be delayed until next February, following a legal challenge by Uber. Transport for London says it believes the test is vital for passenger safety, but Uber says it could force 33,000 private hire drivers out of business. And construction work begins today on a new business district in East London. A Chinese developer says it and its partners will invest £1.7 billion in the Royal Albert Dock project close to City Airport. The finished development will be a mix of offices and homes. London's weather, the rain gradually clearing this morning, but it will stay mostly cloudy with top temperatures down on yesterday at 19 Celsius, 66 Fahrenheit. Now with the BBC Radio London travel, here's Phil Dave.
Thank you, Matthew. Oxford Street is closed in both directions between Oxford Circus and Tottenham Court Road. It's due to overnight engineering works that are overrunning. All buses are on diversion. On the westbound A2, there's been an oil spill between the Bean interchange for Blue Water and M25 Junction 2. That's the Darrington interchange. Although all lanes are open, you need to allow an additional 15 or 20 minutes to get through that one. The westbound North Circular, there's been an incident at the exit slip on Chingford Road. It's the Crooked Billet interchange. And I've got it on the camera at the moment. Traffic does seem to be coping quite well at now. And there's a lane blocked due to a collision on the eastbound Swanley bypass just before the junction for the M25 and M20. Again, traffic is coping well there. And the traffic lights aren't working on East India Dock Road at the junction of Saltwell Street and Upper North Street. Public transport delays of up to 10 minutes and some cancellations on Southern between Hurst Green and East Grinstead due to earlier flooding at East Grinstead. Tickets are being accepted on local buses and Thameslink services. On TfL, the DLR reports that there is no service between All Saints and Canary Wharf, and minor delays between Woolwich Arsenal and Bank, between Stratford and All Saints, and between Beckton and Tower Gateway due to a faulty train at Poplar. All other lines are posting a good service. Phil Dave, BBC Radio London. Next update at 6:45.
BBC Radio London. First for London sport.
England's under-21s have missed out on a place in the final of the European Championship after they lost to Germany on penalties. It was 2-2 after extra time.
and several different methods to get into a computer. However, despite it being more sophisticated, it does actually seem like it's spreading much more slowly than the previous hack attack.
It's called ransomware, of course, because that's exactly what it does. It demands that you pay a ransom to stop your screen being frozen. And yet, last time, there's no evidence that anybody actually claimed the money was there, and there's some suggestion that this was a state-sponsored attack rather than criminals after cash.
Yes, and we're certainly seeing that theory arise again for a couple of reasons. One, the ransom amount was pretty small, $300, and they asked for it in Bitcoin, and we can analyse how much Bitcoin is being sent to a certain wallet that these attackers would be collecting money. It's around $8,000, which isn't very much at all. And also, crucially, the email address that the attackers had set up in order to for people to tell them how they paid the money, that's been disabled by the email provider. So even if people were paying this ransom amount, there's no way for the attackers to know who had paid. So there's absolutely no way that anyone paying this ransom is going to get their files unencrypted, returns them however you want to put it. So there is a very, very strong suggestion that the real motivation behind this is political, particularly political against Ukraine. And the timing of the attack was particularly interesting. It was the night before Constitution Day, which is obviously a major public holiday in Ukraine, and so there is an overwhelming theory that this is about making a political statement rather than the motive being some kind of financial gain from all these ransom payments.
More on that later, Dave Lee. Thank you very much.
It's 21 minutes to 7. Relatives of the 96 people who died at Hillsborough will learn today if anyone will face criminal charges over the disaster that unfolded 28 years ago. They say they're preparing for a day of mixed emotions ahead of the Crown Prosecution Service announcement. Our North of England correspondent Judith Moritz is in Warrington, and Judith, that is where the families will be gathering.
Yes, 11 o'clock this morning, 200 or so relatives of the 96 Liverpool fans who died at Hillsborough will gather at a theatre here in Warrington to hear directly from the Crown Prosecution Service. They'll be told how many, if any, people and organisations will face prosecution over Hillsborough. And it's the culmination of nearly 5 years of work, which followed on from the publication of the Hillsborough Independent Panel Report in 2012. And 2 criminal inquiries have been running during that time from a nondescript office block here in Warrington. Hundreds of investigators have combed many thousands of documents. And the whole thing's cost in the region of £100 million. To give detail about those 2 investigations, Operation Resolve, first of all, is the inquiry into the day of the disaster. They've considered offences including gross negligence manslaughter. They've identified 15 key suspects, one of whom is the former Chief Superintendent David Duckenfield, who was the South Yorkshire Police match commander on the day of the disaster. The second investigation has been run by the IPCC, the Independent Police Complaints Commission. They've investigated allegations of a cover-up following the disaster and have identified 8 key suspects. They've looked into offences including misconduct in a public office and perverting the course of justice. And the former West Yorkshire Chief Constable Sir Norman Bettison has revealed that he is one of those who's been treated as a suspect by the IPCC. It's not known whether he will face charges. The decision on whether to prosecute rests with the Crown Prosecution Service. The CPS have spent the last 6 months examining files concerning all 23 suspects, and they'll announce today whether criminal charges will follow. The families will be told at a private meeting. And meanwhile, at the same time, I understand the suspects who live all over the UK will be notified, and we should have public notification of the decisions by 11:30.
And that will be a milestone in this long legal journey.